Hi, my name is Kayla Novoselsky, and for my audience today is my boyfriend Chris, my brother Dylan, my friend Tara, my friend Brittany, my friend Virginia, and my mom Denise. For this art speech, I chose to talk to you today about a famous musician, Ludwig van Beethoven. I chose this artist because he left a very big impact on this world today. His music was so influential that we still have today commercials and movies based on him. He composed all types of music like symphonies, sonatas, and many other compositions. His music was so complex that it was broken down into 3 periods of his life. I will tell you all about this music development of his because you will see what a great artist he really is. First, I'll give you a brief overview of his life. He was born in Bonn on December 16, 1770, and died in Vienna on March 26, 1827. Beethoven came from a very musical family, to be exact 3 generations of musicians. His music was so influential to him, he started at a very young age. He actually started around the age 8. He published his first composition at age 12. It was called the Dressler Variations. He composed several works after that, before 1787 when he traveled to Vienna to study under Mozart. He was only there 2 weeks when he had to travel back to Bonn because his mother became very sick, and sadly she died shortly after he arrived there. Within 1 or 2 years of that, his father became a drunk alcoholic, so Beethoven was set at the head of his family to take care of everybody. When he came back, he studied under a composer named Haydn. Haydn was heard of Beethoven, so he arranged for him to come back with him to study under him in Vienna. He never went back to Bonn and lived in Vienna forever, as it turned out. According to Joseph Kerman, Beethoven's music career is divided into exactly 3 periods. The first period was from childhood to 1802, the second period was 1802 to about 1815, and the third period was 1815 to 1827. The first period of his music was more of a personal period. He was experimenting with his own sound, but very heavily influenced by Mozart and Haydn. That's who his music was mostly influenced by. Sadly, in 1791, Mozart died, and people looked to Beethoven to take over his spot. Beethoven was very different than other musicians. His music was very blunt and idealistic, and he often brought his audience to tears. Beethoven continued lessons under Haydn until 1794, and then he studied under another composer, J.G. Armbruster. Although Beethoven was not taking any more lessons from Haydn, they had a very strong relationship, and he actually dedicated one of his sonatas to him out of respect and gratitude. Beethoven's first public appearance in Vienna was a pianist, and this captured the essence of his style. His music became very popular. As said by Alan Tyson, in 1800, Beethoven completed his first symphony. He was very daring. He introduced an out-of-key discord that no one ever heard before during this. Sadly, tragedy struck in 1797. Beethoven contracted grave hearing loss. He was so desperate for a cure, he went around from different hospitals and different doctors asking what advice he could do, but sadly there was nothing anybody could do for him. He didn't want this to affect his music, so he fought through it and just kept composing anyway for very many years. The second period was all about him finding his own sound. His music was also influenced by historics around this period. Beethoven's music became very emotional and complex because of this. When he composed, he didn't do it for entertainment. He really wanted to move his audience and make his audience feel his music. Some of the examples of this is the Helen-Justin Testament and the Christies of Oberge. These were for suffering and heroism. Another one of these compositions was called Eroica. This one was influenced by the French Revolution, and he actually dedicated this to Napoleon because in his eyes, Napoleon symbolized freedom. And sadly, during this, Napoleon started changing his attitude, not being towards freedom. He was more about power and getting what he wanted, and Beethoven was very upset because he was the whole inspiration of his composition, so he had to change his whole inspiration to a dedication to a memory of a good man. His music was so different and complex and so emotional, it was essential in the movement of the Romantic era. His works came up short for a little bit of time because the French invaded Vienna, and there was also a custody battle in his family. Beethoven's brother died, and he didn't want to leave his nephew with the mother, so he went to all these courts and custody battles to try to get custody of his nephew. A lot of this took his time and energy. That's why his music kept getting put on hold. And now the third period. The third period was considered his best works because his expertise really showed around this period. He was no more influenced by Haydn and Mozart. He found his own sound. Because his hearing was very bad, he had to trust that what he came up with was genius. When he performed, he really made you feel it. When he hit the high notes, he wanted you to feel happy. And when he hit the low notes, he wanted you to feel sad. He literally walked through the streets of Vienna with his sketchbook, talking to himself, going crazy because he couldn't rely on his hearing anymore. He had to look around for ideas. He went crazy striving for this perfection. He wanted to create something so new and so unique and so unforgettable, it took up all his time. When he lost his hearing, he isolated himself from society because he felt embarrassed because he couldn't compose anymore, really. When he died, people found his compositions, and what they found was amazing. They did find that he did create something very new and unique. If it wasn't for his deafness, we would have seen way more from him than what he already embarked on the music world today. This is why I chose this artist, because he influenced music forever. Like I said, we still base commercials and movies on him and his works today. He is the reason there is romance and emotion in movies. He literally raised music to an art form, just like paintings and poetry. He was very ambitious and he never gave up. He was deaf. What musician is deaf? And this to me is a true artist. Thank you.